Hello, so if you are like me and you like to play around with these virtual handpan and tongue drum players, well, you're in the right place. But to me, personally, I think these virtual players, like the RAVVAST one especially, are very limited and they kind of suck. I mean, it's cool and all, but you can't do custom scales with the RAVVAST one. Uh, Yishama's is okay. The pulsar kind of sucks because the samples are like too loud and like distort. Orion drum's alright, but skip all that. We don't need that. So, as you should already know, because I had a previous video about this, I'm just redoing this. Uh, I went ahead and took the liberty of taking all of those samples from the virtual players, as well as using my own samples from drums that I have owned. I have had several pulsars. I've had a lot of tongue drums and other things that I've gotten samples for. I also have samples for the Perseus Polaris that I got from Liquid Light Acoustics directly, which is pretty nice. And I will share a link for my Google Drive that has all of these samples. There's over 1 GB worth of samples here. And so you can use all of the samples for these virtual versions of the handpans and stuff within a DAW like FLSTUDIO, which I would recommend because I believe even the free demo of FLSTUDIO should include FPC, which is a drum sample loader, which is what you will need to make use of all these samples. The RAVVAST samples I did pitch to 432 hertz, and if you don't want 432 hertz, all you have to do is pitch up 32 cents. I will talk more about that in a moment. So with FPC and FLSTUDIO, it'll start off with a bunch of samples. You have to click on them and clear each pad, like so, and you have to clear all of these. And then once you've got it clear, you would then map notes for an entire bank. And doing this will let you put whatever keys on your keyboard or MIDI keyboard you want it to be laid out to. I already have this done, so I'm going to load my preset. So as you can see, it's blank, and I can just push the keys, and they light up the pads. And so you can just click and drag any samples you want into here. You can get 16 into here, and then actually you can do 32. But I stick with like around 10 notes, since these handpans don't usually have much more than that. So recently I just got where am I looking for? Is it Rav Moon? Yeah. The Rav Moon samples, which are pretty nice, but they sustain a really long time. So I made this folder of edited versions that are shorter sustain. And so you would just click and drag. You can make any scale you want with whatever notes are available. You may not have every note, but I'll show you what you can do if you don't have all the notes you want. We're going to load a D Celtic minor kind of scale here. Okay, so that's our basic 9-note D Celtic minor. So as you can hear with the Rav Moon, the sustain is long and there's a lot of click to the samples, so we can do some stuff to edit that at least. Like if you're playing with the virtual players, you just have what you have. You can't do anything about it. But at least in a DAW, if you learn a little about how to use something like FLSTUDIO, you can do all kinds of cool stuff with the effects. So, firstly, I will route this into a channel, and I will add an EQ. All that clicking is happening over here, so we're gonna kind of focus more of our EQ around where the actual notes are happening, between 100 and 500 hertz kind of here. Actually, there's a lot of it right in that one spot. So that helps it out a little bit. And And then I always like to add reverb, which you can just take default FL Studio's free reverb. And then let's reduce the wet to about 30. Do stereo separation. About 2 seconds. Let it play. Get rid of the cutoff. You can mess around with this however you want. I'm just doing it the way I always do it. And that already sounds pretty good with that little reverb on there. Now, that was 440 hertz. If I want 432 hertz, I can simply type in value here, do -32, which puts us at about 432 hertz. And vice versa, if it was already 432 hertz, as my RAVVAST samples are. These are already 432. If you want that back to 440, you just add 32. And that would be 440 pitch. Okay, so that tells you how the pitch works. Now, the great thing about FPC and being in FL Studio with the sampling is that you click this right here, and you get to this. If you right-click anywhere, it completely changes the pitch of all of the notes at once, so you're in a completely different key. So here we're at D like normal. Let's go up to F. And that is so cool to be able to just pitch to whatever you want, to change that D Celtic minor into something completely different. You can go up even higher. Here's a G. Go up higher. A. Now, of course, as you pitch up higher, the sustain of the notes will become shorter, and the click of the, hitting the note might sound a little different and get kind of crappy sounding the higher you go. If you go lower, the sustain is going to be even longer. So here's B. That still sounds amazing. So let's do this with something else. I'm going to clear this. We were using the Rev Moon, so let's do a Handpan or something else. It is a little confusing with all these. If you don't know what all the notes are, it might be confusing. Trying to figure out a scale, so you might just have to reference the scales that are on the virtual players and just copy the notes. As the RAVVAST, I have like pretty much every note you're ever going to need here, and others that I edited actually that don't really exist, like the C1. Which I edited from the E2 from the E-Pygmy. So we're just going to load the G-Pygmy samples. And there is the 9-note RAVVAST G-Pygmy. This is at 432 hertz. But I have pitched down to the E, back to G, G sharp, A sharp. Ooh, that sounds good. Now let's pitch this to 440 hertz by 32 cents. It's a lot easier to play these with a keyboard or a MIDI keyboard compared to using the virtual players and having to click on the notes with a mouse. I mean, the Orion one and the Pulsar let you use a keyboard, I think, already. I might be mistaken. But in this case, you can use whatever you want to hit the keys. I'm just using a regular keyboard with like Z, X, C, V, B, N, M, comma, period, for the first 10 notes, I believe. And it works fantastic. And again, you can add all kinds of effects and stuff within here, like if I wanted to add flange or chorus. There's a lot that you can do with the default demo FLSTUDIO free plugins that it comes with without needing anything else. And all these samples will be provided for you in the description. So if you want to go ahead and grab that, help yourself. And if you appreciate my work with putting these samples together, I would appreciate you giving me a small donation through Ko-Fi or buy me a coffee. So thanks for watching. Before I go, I also want to mention that I do have some samples here that are from other type of tongue drums, like my own drums I own. What do we got here? I have all kinds of stuff in here, not just the RAVVAST and others. We got the yishama handpan samples, pretty much everything that you can find on the internet, plus my own drums I've had, and my pulsars I've had, a G sharp pygmy and an A sharp major that okay, I'm missing the samples for that. I think those samples are actually here. I might need to reorganize that. But yes, there's all kinds of stuff here, so have fun with it. Enjoy the beauty of the sound of these instruments and how much more customizable it is to use them this way. And I might also be getting some more drums soon, like a Cosmo Sky drum and maybe a handpan myself, and I can record more samples with those. I'll continue to update this Google Drive with more and more stuff over time. So that should be it. I hope you have a good day. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below, and I'll help you to the best of my ability. All right, thanks. Okay, so I had ended the video, and I'm coming back to record some extra because I forgot about these things I wanted to include. So, if you find that certain samples don't sound that great, like in the Rav Moon, this high C, it's very clicky and there's really not much to the note. Instead of using this sample, I'm going to take a different sample, like the G. So we have G, A, and then another G here, which doesn't make sense. But that's okay. We're going to click on the G, and we're going to go to the pad tune, which is the same as our pitch here, but it's only going to affect this note. I'm going to up this 500 cents, which will put it to a C note. Now, doesn't that sound better than this one? It sure does. So sometimes you may have notes that just don't sound great, and you can just use a different note and pitch it up, because it'll still sound pretty good even if you do that. So that was just a little extra info I wanted to give you. Also, you can always just load an individual sample, and doing it this way is not a great idea, but it can be used if you're like making lo-fi music and you don't care that sounds weird. If you just play with a single like C note sample or whatever note, you can mess around with the sample and it will automatically be pitched. It's just not going to sound right because the click and the sustain are going to be different the higher and lower you go. And it might sound kind of weird because of the overtones. Yeah, the overtones on the Moon don't sound great with that, but it might sound okay with like my tongue drum sounds. Maybe not that one. I like this. And that can be played like a piano, basically. It just isn't going to sound that great if it's not all individually recorded samples. So it's better to use FPC or something like this for that reason. Okay, that's all I wanted to add.